He hadn't wanted to come. Not really. 70 years. That's a long time. A lifetime, really. Arthur was an old man now. An old veteran, his shoulders stooped by time and memory, not just his 88 years. What was the point of raking up old dust? What was there to find in the echoes of a past he'd mostly tried to forget? But something pulled him. A whisper from the past, a gentle tug on a string he thought had long since frayed. And so, he found himself standing outside Lincoln High. His heart, a nervous, fragile bird, fluttered wildly in his chest. The invitation had arrived a month ago. Lincoln High class of 1953, 70th reunion. He'd almost thrown it away. 70 years. Most of his classmates would be gone, surely. Or they wouldn't remember him. He was quiet Arthur Jenkins back then. The boy who sat at the back, sketching in his notebook, always a little apart. Not popular, not sporty, just there. But the name Lincoln High stirred something. Not all bad memories. There were moments, fleeting glimpses of sunshine in a generally overcast youth. He remembered Mrs. Peterson, his art teacher who saw something in his clumsy drawings. He remembered the smell of old books in the library. A safe haven. He remembered Sarah, with her kind eyes, who once shared her lunch with him when he'd forgotten his. Or so she thought. He took a deep breath. The air smelled of freshly cut grass, just like it did all those years ago. He pushed open the heavy doors. The halls looked different. And the same. Funny how that happens. New paint, brighter lights. But the faint scent of floor wax and old textbooks, that was familiar. Old ghosts seemed to linger in the corners, just out of sight. He saw a few faces, wrinkled and topped with white or silver hair. He didn't recognize anyone at first. Then a flash of a smile. A certain way someone tilted their head. Vague resemblances. Like faded photographs. A woman with a name tag reading Patty Carmichael beamed at him. Arthur Jenkins? Is that you? He managed a nod. Patty. She'd been a cheerleader. All pep and bright smiles. She still had that sparkle in her eyes, though it was softer now. It's so good to see you, she said, her voice a little shaky. We weren't sure so many can't make it anymore. He felt a pang. Of course. Time was a relentless reaper. He found a seat at a table near the back. Just like old times. He watched the others. They laughed, they hugged, they exclaimed over how much or how little. Everyone had changed. He felt a familiar ache. That old sense of being on the outside, looking in. He was a veteran, yes. He'd seen war. He'd lived a full if quiet life. He'd been a carpenter, good with his hands. He'd married, had children, even grandchildren. But here, in this room, he was just quiet Arthur again. The boy nobody really knew. Why had he come? The question echoed in his mind. He remembered his last year. It was tough. His father had lost his job. Money was scarce. So scarce, some days his lunch was just a single apple, or nothing at all. He remembered the gnawing hunger, the shame of it. He remembered seeing his classmates with their packed lunches, their coins for the soda machine, and feeling a world away. Then, the principal walked to the podium. A younger man, not the stern Mr. Abernathy of Arthur's time, nor the kind Mrs. Gable who followed him. This was Mr. Harrison. He tapped the microphone. Welcome back, class of 1953, he began, his voice warm. It's an honor to have you here. 70 years. What a milestone. Arthur listened politely. The usual speeches. Thanks for coming. Fond memories. The school's progress. He let his mind wander. Mr. Harrison continued. This school holds so many stories. So many lives have passed through these halls. And sometimes the past leaves little treasures behind for us to find. Arthur's attention sharpened a little. Treasures. During some recent renovations in the old principal's office, Mr. Harrison said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. We found something quite remarkable. Something tucked away, perhaps forgotten, for a very long time. A hush fell over the room. The chattering stopped. Everyone leaned in a little. Mr. Harrison reached under the podium. He brought out a small wooden box. It was old, darkened with age, scratched and worn, but clearly made with care. Arthur's breath caught in his throat. His heart didn't just flutter now. It slammed against his ribs. He knew that box. He'd made it. In shop class, Mr. Henderson had taught them woodworking. Arthur had loved the feel of the wood, the smell of the sawdust. He'd spent weeks on that box, sanding it smooth, fitting the small brass hinges just right. It was supposed to be a gift for his mother. But he'd lost it, or he thought he had. Towards the end of his senior year, he'd been devastated. Mr. Harrison held up the box. This box was found deep in a storage closet in Mrs. Gable's old office. She was your principal after Mr. Abernathy, I believe. It seems she kept it safe. He carefully opened it. Inside, he said, his voice now tinged with emotion, were a few items, and a letter. Arthur felt his face flush. What was in there? He couldn't remember putting anything specific in it before it vanished. Just a few small carvings perhaps. Practice pieces. There's a small carved bird, Mr. Harrison said, holding up a tiny delicate wooden bird. Arthur remembered carving it. He'd wanted to give it to Sarah, the girl with the kind eyes. But he'd been too shy. And a few old coins. Mr. Harrison continued. Pennies, nickels, dimes. Not much. Arthur frowned. Coins? He didn't remember coins. But the most significant thing, Mr. Harrison said, his gaze sweeping the room before landing, almost imperceptibly, on Arthur, is this letter. Not from the student who made the box. It's from Principal Gable herself. The room was utterly silent. You could hear a pin drop. Mr. Harrison unfolded a brittle yellowed piece of paper. Mrs. Gable addressed it, to be opened at the 70th reunion of the class of 1953, or given to Arthur Jenkins, should he ever inquire about a lost wooden box. Arthur felt a cold wave wash over him, then a hot one. His name. Mrs. Gable remembered his name. And the box. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. It reads, My dearest students of 1953, or my dear Arthur. If you are reading this, many years have passed. I hope life has been kind to you all. Today I want to tell you a story about one of your own. A quiet boy. A boy with a good heart. His name is Arthur Jenkins. Arthur squeezed his eyes shut. He felt 100 pairs of eyes turn towards him. He wished the floor would swallow him up. This was a nightmare. Mr. Harrison continued reading Mrs. Gable's letter. His voice was gentle, respectful. In the spring of 1953, one of your classmates, the Miller family, lost their home in a fire. It was a terrible tragedy. The school started a small collection for them. Many of you gave what you could. But Arthur Jenkins did something extraordinary. Every day for over a month, Arthur quietly went without his own lunch. Every single day. Instead, he took his lunch money, what little he had, and I know his family was struggling greatly at that time, and he slipped it into the donation jar for the Miller family, anonymously. He never said a word. He grew thinner. He looked tired, but he kept doing it. A soft gasp went through the room. Arthur could feel Sarah's gaze on him. He remembered her offering him half her sandwich. He'd always politely refused, saying he wasn't hungry. The shame of his hunger, and the deeper secret of his giving, had been too much to share. Mr. Harrison's voice quavered slightly as he read on. I only found out by accident. I saw him one day, looking faint. I pieced it together. I found this beautiful box he had made in shop class, which he reported lost. I believe he intended it for his mother, but perhaps felt he no longer deserved to give gifts, or simply misplaced it in his distress. I kept it safe, along with the small amount of money I found he'd been trying to save within it, perhaps for a treat he could no longer afford. I added it to the Miller Fund anonymously. In his spirit, Arthur, if you are here, know that your quiet sacrifice did not go unnoticed. It taught me more about character and kindness than any book ever could. You were a hero in plain sight, though none of us saw it clearly then. To the class of 1953, remember this: true greatness is often quiet. It is found in selfless acts, in compassion given without expectation of reward. Arthur Jenkins embodied that. I hope knowing this enriches your reunion. Mr. Harrison paused, his own eyes glistening. The letter is signed, Eleanor Gable, Principal. He looked directly at Arthur. The box also contained this small note, tucked under the bird, in what looks like a young man's handwriting. It says, for Mom. I hope it's good enough. Tears were streaming down Arthur's face now. He wasn't trying to hide them. He remembered writing that note. He remembered the hope, the fear. He looked around, and he saw tears in other eyes too. Katie Carmichael was openly weeping. Even some of the men, gruff old fellows, were dabbing at their eyes. Sarah was looking at him with such warmth, such understanding, her own cheeks wet. The silence in the room was no longer uncomfortable. It was full of emotion, full of 70 years of unsaid things, of lives lived, of regrets perhaps, but also of a new profound understanding. Then someone started to clap, a slow hesitant clap, then another joined, and another. Soon the entire room was filled with applause. It wasn't loud or boisterous, it was soft, respectful. It was for him, for quiet Arthur Jenkins. Mr. Harrison stepped down from the podium and walked over to Arthur's table. He placed the wooden box gently in front of him. "Arthur," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "this belongs to you." Arthur reached out a trembling hand and touched the smooth worn wood, his box. After all these years, he picked up the little carved bird. He thought of his mother, long gone. He thought of Mrs. Gable, and her incredible kindness in keeping his secret, and his box, safe. Sarah came over to his table. She placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Arthur," she whispered, her voice choked. I had no idea. You were always so kind. But, oh Arthur." He looked up at her, and for the first time in this room, he didn't feel like an outsider. He felt seen, truly seen. He tried to speak, but his voice was a croak. He cleared his throat. "Thank you," he managed, looking at Mr. Harrison, then at Sarah, then around the room. "Mrs. Gable, she was a good woman." He paused, then added softly, "It was a long time ago. We all did what we could, but they knew his what I could was more than most." The rest of the reunion was different. People came to his table. They didn't gush. They just spoke, quietly, shared a memory, shook his hand. One old fellow, who Arthur vaguely remembered as a bit of a bully, came over, his eyes red. "Jenkins," he said, his voice gruff. I'm glad you came." That was all, but it was enough. Arthur finally understood why he'd felt that pull to come back. It wasn't to rake up old dust. It was to find a piece of himself he hadn't known was missing. A piece that Mrs. Gable had carefully preserved for him. He held the little wooden box in his lap for the rest of the afternoon. It was more precious than any medal he'd ever earned. It was a testament to a quiet act, a hidden kindness, that had finally, after 70 long years, found the light. As he left Lincoln High that day, the old building didn't seem to hold ghosts anymore. It held warmth. It held a story, his story. And for the first time in a very, very long time, Arthur Jenkins walked with his shoulders just a little less stooped, his heart not a nervous bird, but full, and at peace. He finally understood that even the quietest lives can echo through time, and that true treasures are not always made of gold, but of kindness. Life has a funny way of surprising us, doesn't it? Just when we think all the stories have been told, a new chapter unfolds, filled with unexpected emotion, and a deeper understanding of the people around us, and even of ourselves. Arthur's story reminds us that small acts of kindness can have a ripple effect, touching lives in ways we may never know. What did you think of Arthur's story? Did it touch your heart? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales, and don't forget to share it with someone who might need a little reminder of the quiet power of kindness. Thank you for watching.